Prime Minister Phankham Viphavanh has told the National Assembly or NA that misappropriation by executives and staff combined with poor management are the main reasons for the chronic losses suffered by state enterprises. The state owns 178 enterprises, nearly all of which have recorded losses over many years.
สำหรับการแก้ไขรัฐวิสาหกิจติดพันกับเวลาแห่งชาตินี่ก็สำคัญหลายเดี๋ยวนี้รัฐบาลกำลังอยู่ในกระบวนการว่านี่ซะก็คือรายงานไปสุดก่อนปฏิรูปรัฐวิสาหกิจ
Prime Minister told lawmakers last week in response to questions raised at the ongoing third ordinary session of the Assembly's ninth legislature that the government is now engaged in comprehensive reforms of these enterprises, hoping to put an end to the state's burdensome subsidy of their operations. The state owns 178 enterprises, nearly all of which have been recorded losses over many years.
ทุกบริษัทรัฐวิสาหกิจนี่มีน้อยที่สุดที่มีผลกำไรรายงานรูปทื่นหมดก็จะเห็นอะไร
There are very few state enterprises that make a profit, Prime Minister Phankham told lawmakers, saying state enterprises should be the drivers of the nation's economy, but instead they have become a heavy burden, he added. Enterprises that are fully state-owned hardly ever make profit and have had to be heavily subsidized in order to sustain them. Administration of these enterprises typically did not follow a sound business plan. In addition, the recruitment of executives and staff was largely based on nepotism, with these factors being the main reason for deep-seated management failure.
ก็คือได้ว่าเนี่ยบทเรียนสหายผู้แทนถ้าว่าอันใดแม่นบริษัทรัฐวิสาหกิจห้อยส่วนห้อยยากจะมีกำไร
Companies that were thought likely to generate remarkable revenue through the participation of their children or other relatives provided the main source of recruitment, the Prime Minister told the televised broadcast of the session, referring to the child and relatives of influential individuals. In some cases, the management of state enterprises invented projects and allocated budgets for them but put the money in their own pockets.
มันเป็นอย่างนั้นแต่ว่าคันว่ามันย้อนไผก็การบริหารงานของรัฐบาลนี่ยอมรับฉันต่อไป
Prime Minister Phankham admitted that these issues had arisen because of neglect on the part of the government. However, the government has embarked on a deep reform of the enterprise it owns, pledging to no longer tolerate damaging practices.
ขอเว้าอีกทีนึงว่าอยู่ในขบวนการแห่งการปฏิรูปบ่แม่นปรับปรุงธรรมดา
Under the reform program, the government will retain full ownership of enterprises of extreme strategic importance. It will sell stakes of various size in other enterprises to private investors, deepening on their importance. Under the reform agenda, two banks that were previously state-owned and suffered chronic losses had begun to turn a profit after the government sold a 70% stake in the banks to local investors. The top executive posts of these joint venture businesses are held by individuals who have a large stake in the banks, with the management system based on accepted business models. Prime Minister Phankham said civil servants like officials who previously headed up state enterprises could no longer do whatever they wanted, as was the case before the joint venture were formed. Under the reform program, the government has also sold a 51% in the Lao State Postal Enterprise, according to a report from the Ministry of Finance. Meanwhile, the sale of 49% stake in the Lao Logistics State Enterprise and MSIG Insurance Lao Company Limited is currently being processed. Giving it significant importance, the government will retain full ownership of Electricité du Laos, but comprehensive reform will be undertaken. The government will retain at least 51% stake in the Lao Airlines, the Agro-Industrial Development Company, the Lao Export-Import Trading Company, and the Lao State Fuel Enterprise. EDL Generation Public Company will remain a public company, but comprehensive reform will be carried out according to the Finance Ministry. The state-owned Inter-Lao Tourism has been dissolved, and two others, Dafi and the Lao Cotton State Enterprise, will also be disbanded after being considered incapable of reform for efficient operation.
ขอบใจเนาะขอบใจและสมเสยต่อที่แจ้งให้ทางนายกรัฐมนตรี